There is something seriously broken in the games industry, guys. From PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, everything is cooked right now. And Grand Theft Auto 6 might be the saving grace for Sony at least, but I'll get into that one later on. But either way, the bubble is popped. And as they say, hardware and console sales are plummeting, and I can also prove it. So what happens next? Well, firstly, let's look at this from Insider Gaming. They confirmed recently that Sony PlayStation's hardware has officially crashed to its lowest numbers sold in 25 years. So essentially, almost their entire existence pretty much, minus the PS1 I guess, so this is substantially bad. This comes from American video game sales data from Matt Piscatella, who's a games analyst. Just how bad is the drop-off for Sony PlayStation at least? As IGN said it here, PS5 spending is down 43% year on year, while the actual unit sales have dropped 58% so far, so it's really bad for Sony. It means currently right now, as of this video being recorded anyways, that Sony has hit their lowest console and game sales since May 2000. Which is the time period between the PS1 and the eventual historic rise of course, the PlayStation 2. The timing is intentional too. Look at this from the PS blog in May 2026 here, where they updated the price of every Sony console offering across the entire planet. So it's really no wonder that the moment Sony raised the prices, they also lost console sales too. It's a terrible spot to be in, I know. But if Xbox fans are celebrating and twerking about this downfall for PlayStation, well, I wouldn't be doing that either, because also from Insider Gaming, yep, as you can see there, Xbox console sales are also at their lowest ever recorded, the same on PlayStation. So if you think this is some console war video, no, sorry. This is more so me chronicling just how cooked everything is instead. You see, unlike Sony, when it comes to Xbox, there hasn't really been a concrete number percentage-wise given as to how poorly it's performing currently. But Microsoft sure did plan the worst update imaginable given what we know now, because like 2 days before I wrote this video, as confirmed by Microsoft here, all of their Xbox hardware is now even more expensive than it was already, as Microsoft confirmed as well. Effective August 1st, 2026, we will be updating prices worldwide. The price of Xbox consoles will increase by American $100 for the 512GB models and American $150 for the 1TB models. We will also be sunsetting our 2TB models, so they're getting rid of that model immediately. Well, that's interesting. Microsoft further states in this next paragraph, they try to keep costs down, but since the price of memory chips and more are skyrocketing in price as they are, they deem it impossible to do so. They also say there that the price of memory is expected to increase to even further unfathomable levels in fall 2027, which is not good because as says.com reported here, and really most places too, Sony is still on track to release their PlayStation 6 console in 2027 despite the rising costs and the plummeting market share. Like, the more I look into this, the more worrying it gets, because Push Square, as seen here, has also confirmed that Sony's next console is also ready for a 2027 release date despite those rising costs, which honestly, in my opinion, I don't think it's a good idea. If people can barely afford your 6-year-old console due to the rising costs of everything, what hope do you have that people will be able to afford your PS6 in 2027 now? Arguably, even when it comes to Sony first-party games, there hasn't really been enough to justify the current generation whatsoever. Too many games have been cancelled due to live service nonsense, and more studios have closed down this generation from Sony than ever, pretty much, at least I think so. And I'm of the mind that currently the PS5, Xbox Series X, and the PC hardware, Nintendo Switch, all of that is out already, it's perfectly fine as it is, like performance-wise. We haven't even reached the full capabilities of what current gen is capable of graphics-wise or even gameplay. I also think another new console refresh right now is effectively pointless when most PS5 exclusives aren't even ready or out yet. Where is Intergalactic from Naughty Dog even? But what worries me even more and makes this entire endeavor for the next console generation is that currently, as it's planned, as Push Square reported in October 2025 here, the PlayStation 6 is allegedly going to be cheaper and less powerful than the next Xbox, which is currently called Project Helix. However, even in 2025, as I highlighted there, leakers have confirmed that Sony is still hard-pressed to deliver a new console in 2027 no matter what. So, as of right now, that release date hasn't changed for them, which further rumors from Push Square, where I highlighted again here, is that the new Xbox will be both more powerful and far more expensive than the supposed PlayStation 6, which honestly makes me believe that this bubble surrounding AAA, man, it hasn't just popped, guys. This thing is imploding. Like, the turkey is cooked, pull the fire alarm, whatever you gotta do. This whole thing is heading for enter market crash territory before long. The other big rumor, and take this with the fattest grains of salt, as IGN reported there, is that Sony's next console might actually be a hybrid console. Yeah, similar to what the Nintendo Switch 2 has become, which honestly, if that were the case, that would be interesting at least to see happen. So what basis do they have for this? Well, this comes from a Famitsu interview, which is a Japanese gaming magazine if you didn't know, where they spoke to Sony CEO Hideki Nishino about the future of PlayStation and what's in store for console buyers and the like. So the first confirmation as seen here is Nishino cements that Sony's commitment to staying in the console space. They have zero plans on leaving or abandoning it, and they want to double down even further, so that's good news. Nishino then confirms the biggest future for video games is a pick-up and play way of gaming, as he says it here, leveraging technologies that can be used in various forms and locations, and that this would enable Sony to create something exciting. So what Nishino is referencing is it has to be clearly the Nintendo Switch hybrid game design. What else can it be? The idea that you can play your Switch 2 or 1 both as a handheld and as a console depending on your choices, that's a big selling point. And look, it does make sense for Sony to want to encroach on Nintendo's territory here, because there is a very large fan base of players who love their handheld gaming. We know this already. The rebound that Nintendo made after the disappointment that was the Wii U with the Switch 1 and now the 2, it's kind of legendary, guys. I mean, the Switch, as in the original, it sold gangbusters and it revolutionized how people approached console gaming on Nintendo's platform. You can't even deny that. We know this is part of the future because obviously even Valve has created the Steam Deck, which, as we all know, is a handheld version of a console that allows you to play your Steam library with Steam Deck verified games, right? Which has been very popular because not only does it free you from the living room, but you can take your games with you, which is a godsend for anyone who's on, let's say, a plane, or they're going on vacation somewhere, they're on the road, they're on a train, on a bus, and the like then. The closest thing that Sony has right now to either of these things is the PlayStation Portal, which, as seen here in 2025 from Push Square, the Portal has actually been a major success for Sony. I own a Portal myself, actually, because I wanted to see what the hype was all about that thing, and if you don't know, the Portal allows you to stream your PS5 directly to the device. Unfortunately, you can't download games onto the Portal to play natively. It is strictly a streaming device only. That being said, I have played plenty of games on my Portal myself, from Star Ocean Second Story R, Trails from Daybreak, Prince of Persia The Lost Crown, and stuff like Monster Hunter Stories even. In all aspects, it worked well pretty much, although personally my home Wi-Fi sometimes is spotty, which can lead to a weird experience where I do get lag, and yes, it's very annoying. However, whenever I've been out somewhere, like say a hotel, for example, right, the last 2 years in a row, I was in Banff over in Alberta for in a hotel room for a few days. And yeah, I would use the hotel Wi-Fi, and I was playing Trails from Daybreak, no problem in Banff while my PS5 was at home. And yeah, it was glorious. It was amazing. I remember when I went to Texas a few years ago to meet Nerdrotic, the Geeks and Gamer guys, and Stuttering Craig from Side Scrollers. I brought my Portal with me too. And yeah, I was playing Prince of Persia The Lost Crown on it, even though my console was in another country in Canada. I was just laying in my hotel bed in my underwear playing that thing in the dark, and it was cool. It was awesome, actually. I just wish I could download games natively on the dang thing, because when I'm on a plane, for example, well, you can't use the Portal, obviously, because the stream option is nigh impossible to make work that way. So that's where, Nintendo, Steam, even Xbox with the Ally, it outdoes Sony dramatically currently. Because in all other cases, you can play those games ecosystems without a hitch on those devices, right? So it makes sense to me that Sony would want to transform the PS6 into some sort of hybrid console as opposed to just being a console-only thing like usual. Personally, however, I wonder if that trade-off is going to be worth it, because if Sony makes the PS6 into a Switch 2 per se, Sony is going to be trading power for convenience. Granted, like I said earlier, I still don't think games today have fully capitalized on the graphical quality, and then some of the PS5, Xbox Series, or the PC even. So if Sony were to jump the PlayStation fan base into a more powerful, let's say PS5.5 like era, but traded the graphics for portability, I mean, for me, I can't speak for everybody, obviously, but for me, I would be okay with it. Because like I said in previous videos on my channel, I am caring less and less about the graphical quality of games as time goes on. I care way more about stuff like, performance, actual game content, customization, and if games have unique art styles, I'm all for it. Some of my favorite games of the past few years are like Octopath Traveler 0 or the remaster of Final Fantasy Tactics. Yeah, not exactly graphically powerful games, right? But it doesn't matter because they're fun and that's really all that matters. Plus with Nintendo, their games could run no problem on a PS5 if they were ported, yet despite the lapse in power that Nintendo has, their hardware still good enough that many people are still playing games there anyways all of the time. Which tells me the future of games as a whole, again in my opinion, so let me know what you think in the comments obviously, may not be in who can create the most realistic graphics ever conceived going forward, but instead who can reach the players where they are in the broadest sense. And largely speaking, let's be honest, if it comes to catering to younger players and where they are right now, what console is doing that the best? Right, the Nintendo Switch 1 or 2, because it frees them from having to take up the living room space to game, right? It leaves mom and dad's TV alone because little Timmy can play as Pokemon or Super Mario away from everybody and still enjoy his console experience like no matter where he goes. And right now, if you wanted to do the same with Sony, you'd have to buy your kid the PS5, then you'd have to buy them a Portal to stream the PS5 to. I think you might even need PlayStation Plus. I could be wrong about that one, but either way, right, that's an added cost that's already expensive to make the same thing happen that the Switch can do for cheaper. But if the next PS6 was a Switch 2, well then it's all built in natively, right? And I would love to play my PlayStation library on the plane. Like I plan to go on vacation finally in about like 2 months time from now. My game plan is I play my Switch 2 on the plane, but when I'm in the actual hotel and I want to game something, yeah, I'm going to whip out my Portal obviously. I wish I could just play my Portal on the plane, but if the PS6 can remedy that, then yeah, I'm all game personally. So while yes, the gaming market is absolutely 100% cooked right now, no doubt about it, because it is, maybe in a way it's like a cocoon that's waiting to explode so the next stage of life can continue, you know what I mean? Xbox, like Sony, is also at their lowest console sales ever right now, and for good reason too, because neither company is currently offering anything that truly convinces people they need to buy in now if they haven't already in the last 6 years. The only game also that is currently holding Sony's future and really any bright spot is Grand Theft Auto 6, of course. Obviously, as we all know, GTA 6 is coming in November 2026. It's confirmed now. The date is set. Rockstar is all engines go on that game releasing finally. Obviously, GTA 6 is not coming to Switch 2 anytime soon, nor is it coming to PC until probably next year at the earliest. So that leaves you two places to play day one, right? Xbox and PlayStation. And the only bright spot in these console sales right now is that GTA 6 is at least saving Sony from utter oblivion. Well, sort of, kind of, not really. I'll get into it. As Vice reported here, okay, GTA 6 pre-orders are currently eclipsing hard with 6 pre-orders on PlayStation 5 to every 1 pre-order on Xbox right now. As Vice said it here, major retailers are also citing console shortages, mostly for PlayStation 5, up until the release of GTA 6. So the game business spoke to a popular retailer. Weirdly, they didn't name who they were, so it could be anybody, Best Buy, GameStop, who knows, but anyways, they were told as it reads here. We've been informed that because of the ongoing issues around hardware component availability, we won't be getting the units we want ahead of GTA 6. Demand will likely outstrip supply during the year-end period. So is that good? Doesn't that mean Sony's consoles will be flying off the shelves? Well, it depends on how you look at it, I guess. Is it good for Sony because it means their stock will be sold out due to the GTA 6 hype? Yes. Does it also mean the average player will have their wallets drained to stupid high levels because of scalpers and market trends because of GTA 6? Also, yes. It's a win-lose situation depending on who you care about, but either way, the bubble is popped and Sony is now pretty much banking their business on Rockstar's next big game to be essentially, in a way, their biggest console exclusive sale for the foreseeable future. Which I know it's not even an exclusive per se, but it is on PS5 and Xbox only day one at least, and clearly right now PS5 is the preferred platform for GTA. As we know, every Rockstar game has had close ties to PlayStation since forever. We all know this already. I think Vice, however, puts it into perspective that while yes, consoles being sold is good, the reality is still defeating, okay? Here's how they put it. Sony also acknowledged shortages in their annual PlayStation report for 2026. According to the Japanese publisher, hardware components have become so expensive that they are reaching a point where they could actually lose money per PS5 sold without another price increase. This means that even if Microsoft and Sony could make more consoles to meet the GTA 6 demand, they would likely lose a lot of money doing it without another price hike. So that kind of confirms that even if they sell, which they will, but the profit being made might not be in Sony's best interest in the long run if the price of the chips and the memory is already skyrocketing as it is at the current price. And think about it, the vast majority of people who are going to buy a PS5 at these higher prices are likely just going to buy it to just play GTA 6. Sure, of course, it doesn't mean that there won't be players that will dabble in other games or services like PS Plus on their Sony console. Of course, it's going to happen. But in this reality, is a single game that they're buying it for really worth the loss in revenue per console? It kind of leaves Sony in a weird spot, I got to admit, where they both have no consoles to sell due to the demand for this one game, but also because it's so expensive to make the console in the first place. The offset here is not making them enough in the long run, unfortunately. It's a really super weird position to be in, guys. I don't know, man. This is likely why Xbox just announced that $150 price increase that I showed you earlier in the video, because they're probably looking at everything and they're thinking like, if we can surge the price on purpose, we can at least ensure in theory that the console being sold to, play GTA 6, of course, will make them some sort of profit as opposed to what most consoles are doing now, which is that most consoles, as in case you don't know anyways, they are always usually sold at a loss on purpose, right? They want to get people to buy the thing. The actual profit is always made through the software, as the people who buy the console then will buy probably multiple games and subscribe to services and the like. And that is where these companies then make their real money, right? A console is kind of nothing more than a Trojan horse really at this point. The only game company that has circumvented this problem is Valve in a sense, since they don't have to sell you a PC at a loss to make you download Steam. You just pay whatever for whoever's parts for your PC and then you just get Steam, right? Although Valve with the Steam machine, it's kind of the same problem now. As Tom's Hardware said here, due to the same problems plaguing everybody else right now, Valve's Steam machine's price has now surpassed $1,000 American at launch. If you want to compare the Steam machine to PlayStation, well, look at this chart on screen. The Steam Deck, for example, due to the RAM apocalypse going on with the chips, has had its price increased by 43% already. In general, everything got more expensive, right? Doesn't matter where you go. Which brings me to the other question, right? How is anyone new supposed to get into gaming now? Every avenue is cooked right now. New generation of players, they're going to have to sell their kidneys to get a console at this point. Currently, this means that the Steam machine is more expensive than a PlayStation 5 Pro, although Valve thinks the console they made has value, because games on Steam, in theory, can be sold for less, so they'll make money that way instead. The Steam machine doesn't even come with the controller at its $1,000 plus price point, by the way. You're gonna have to add a controller for $80 American on top. It just feels like right now, like it doesn't matter where you go, right? Like it's like kind of the worst time imaginable if you were thinking about getting into video games. Like if I was a kid today, I wouldn't be a gamer, honestly. I just couldn't afford it. How could I, right? Hey, mom and dad, please spend over $1,000 and then some so I can play some video games. They would slap me over the head and tell me to go outside to play. Because on PlayStation's side, their consoles have on average increased in price by around 33%. It's unsustainable, right? Like even by the most optimistic measures, like maybe, okay, the PS6 opens the console market to a new beginning by theoretically sacrificing power and the cost of the overall console for convenience and affordability. Maybe that could be the way forward. But at the same time, Sony's PlayStation, from a console perspective anyway, has kind of always been seen as the premier platform for console graphics. Again, console, I mean. I know the PC users will say, well, PC beats it. Yes, I know that, but comparing PS5 to Xbox or Switch is what I'm getting at here. But if even Sony doesn't see the graphical quality as like a selling point for the future, but instead portability and convenience and God-hoping battery life, because my God, dude, the idea of a PS5.5 like console in a handheld version that can play, let's say, GTA 6 and God knows what else. Like that thing, dude, that thing's going to burn its battery so fast unless Sony creates a miracle somehow in that thing. Because even my Switch 2, when I play it like in handheld version with the volume low even, that thing still burns through its battery in like 3 hours tops somehow, which isn't ideal either. But honestly, it just kind of feels like everything is ballooning and things are going to get worse before they correct themselves. I mean, with games these days taking 5 to 7 years to develop, like in AAA anyways, publishers charging more now and such, it's alarming, all right. It's also puzzling, because AAA keeps telling us they need more money from us to sustain themselves, but it's like, how is that even possible, guys? You keep stating that you have years of record revenues and all of this stuff, but despite this, the industry still feels like it's running out of cash anyways. It just feels like, honestly, like gaming has become trapped in in a time loop of its own making, as if every bad decision just creates another problem, and executives are trying to solve it by making more bad decisions. And unless something changes here, the next decade of gaming, it kind of looks cooked and more expensive too. Micron, for example, which makes chips for all sorts of electronics, has confirmed from the Register.com here that they have actually locked in their prices for the next 5 years at historic highs, dude. Micron has confirmed they've secured 16 different partnerships with huge companies from 2026 to like 2031, where they will be making money over fist due to these shortages. As Micron's CEO said it here, our customers are recognizing that supply shortages in memory and storage will take considerable time to improve. Even as we expect industry supply to improve gradually in 2028, we currently do not have any line of sight as to when memory supply will be able to catch up with increasing demand. Things will only take longer too, as seen here in this paragraph where I highlighted. Due to the complexity of what these companies need, they can't build these things fast enough as of right now. So Micron's revenue has skyrocketed because of this, as seen here. They're making billions every quarter. Their revenue has actually gone up 343% year over year due to the ongoing shortage of chips and memory. Dude, that is insane. Again, Apple has also confirmed here that their MacBooks and their iPads will also see huge spikes in price too, due to the same shortages affecting Sony and Microsoft. As seen here, Apple's prices are going up to hundreds of dollars each per product, by the way, as Apple said here. The consumer electronics industry is facing an unprecedented challenge. The rapid expansion of AI data centers has created an extraordinary surge in demand for memory and storage. We have never seen a component price increase this much this quickly. So this will keep happening. At this point, if you own any console, PC, whatever it is, just hold on to it, okay? You have no need to upgrade. Unless you're rich and you have the money to spare, I guess. Otherwise, what's coming is just going to reach unreasonable levels of demand, guys. My fear is that because things are getting where they are, audiences in games, for example, are not going to grow. They're actually going to shrink over time. More people are just going to stick with the current gen or maybe the older gen consoles, which is why I think releasing a PS6 in 2027 is either going to be a huge boon for Sony or a major bust, like depending on whether they can launch it at a reasonable price, which honestly I doubt it. When even one of the world's largest technology companies in Microsoft is also restructuring parts of its own gaming business, I mean, that's going to raise broader questions too about whether this whole current AAA thing is sustainable, which honestly I'm not really thinking that it is right now. The only group doing somewhat okay right now is Nintendo, although their sales are still down, but recently Nintendo actually raised their employees' salaries by around 10%, which is a good sign at least compared to everybody else. But in the end, the industry honestly feels stuck right now. It's kind of what worries me, because it seems like no one in charge of these companies is kind of willing to solve the underlying problems. Instead, they're just raising costs and hoping that it fixes it for them, instead of actually facing these problems head on. They'll just make things cost more, because that's going to work, right? It means that they're kind of just dumping the problem on all of us, and once the sales get low, studios cut the jobs and the projects get canceled inevitably, the executives are going to conclude, you know what we need now? That's right, more monetization, and then that time loop just starts again. And the budgets will get bigger instead of sustainable development being fixed. The next 5 years look uncertain right now for all of this, I admit. You got microchips manufacturing that are not getting cheaper. You got large-scale developments that aren't going to be shrinking. In fact, I think it's going to get bigger actually once GTA 6 hits record profits and everybody's going to be trying to replicate them. But I think the consumers, like you and me, we're going to have our limits. And the danger here won't just be the higher prices, but creative stagnation too. Because if everything's going to cost infinity dollars, well, who's going to take the risks? Nobody, but really the indie developers now. Yeah, we're facing a lot of crises right now, I know that, but don't lose hope, okay? Your best bet right now is you should probably only buy the games you really need to have day one. Otherwise, just mostly stick to your backlog, guys. Sure, I'll get certain games coming out, Final Fantasy Resonance, Onimusha, Way of the Sword, Lords of the Fallen 2, but mostly I'm just going to be playing my backlog in all honesty. I have enough games for the most part already that I need to beat. The industry might not like that, but when everything costs an arm and a leg like it does right now, I mean, what other option do we have really? I am interested in a hybrid Sony console, but if that thing ends up being like $1,300 Canadian, I don't think any future of gaming will look manageable if prices keep spiraling out of control like this. I've talked enough. What do you think? Has the bubble burst? Is gaming cooked? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for being here. Just go play your backlog, guys. Enjoy what you got already. Subscribe if you'd like to. I'll keep you up to date like always. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to go play my backlog some more.